everyone, Andrew Faldy here with SMBU, and just wanted to show you something cool. This is a backtest, automated backtest from some script that I wrote looking for a relative momentum system. So looking for things that are slightly stronger than the market to get long, and a couple other filters in there. And so you see I got EWZ on here, it just happens to be the one that I'm looking at. You see this backtest from 2001 to 2016, and it's got pretty good performance. Some drawdowns in there, but generally speaking, I like it. So I wonder, well, maybe there's a way to improve this, but if I work on improving this, am I only improving it for EWZ, or am I really finding a more robust and more reliable system? So a couple things I'll show you. So here's the idea. It's looking at, I got some data here. I got the SPY and I've got the EWZ on here, and you can see that it's looking for some relative strength here. So even with on a long-term basis, doesn't have relative strength, but here when just in the short term the relative strength starts to pick up, it gets long EWZ here and holds it until it loses its relative strength. So it gets these nice wins, and then it's going to have a lot of smaller losses because there are some other factors making sure you're not holding losses as well. So there's a lot of these really short wins when it's just got a little strength for a short period of time and then it gets out. So that system does pretty well. No secrets here. This is the code. If you know what you're looking at, you can copy it. It's just an experiment. So I'm looking at this, trying a couple different ways to calculate relative strength, some filters, etc. But I still want to know, is this something that's reliable? So then I can come over to this portfolio backtester called Portfolio Maestro. And there's other ways to do this. I'm not promoting one set of software. This multi-charts is another piece of software that does very similar things, and you can do custom programming as well and get a lot of the same information. So the process is the same. The software is always going to have different benefits and challenges. So here you can see I've done all of these backtests, and what these are actual portfolio backtests, some of which have 30 or 100 different instruments inside of them. Some of them having 10,000 historic trades to them to give me some information. So you can see, like, first I build a strategy, then I want to make changes to it. I'm testing it on one stock, and I just keep wondering, what happens if I do it more? What happens if I do it on a whole basket of stocks? What happens if I make one change? And you can see it, you get into this spider web of if-then and what-if questioning. And so at that point it comes that you can start getting this information that once seemed so challenging to get because it was so much to consider doing a 15-year backtest by hand. That's too challenging. So you actually get it done, but then you want to make one change. So you do it programmatically, you do it automated, you do it with script. That's fine. But now you have the opportunity to quickly get that 15 years of data. So you say, well, now I would like to get it on a whole basket of stocks. So that's fine. The computer will do that for you too. It'll give you a whole basket of stocks, 15 years of backtesting information, and I can get it in 2 minutes. I get all this information and it comes out and I get this nice risk graph saying, oh, this is looking good here. I can see I get this risk graph of what the system looks like based on optimization. You can see here's a different one. All these different things. But we get lost. There's still, you get more information. It's easier to get more information, so you just get more of it. So you still have the original problem with there's just information overload. There's so much data. How do we go through this and actually make decisions about what to do with all of this information? So I'm going to show you this journaling process that I go through, and this is very ugly. This is just after I did this journal, I said, oh, I'm going to go ahead and share this. You can see I haven't even named it, and we're basically just looking at this plotting where I'm taking a journal of all the changes that I've made. So I called this the deviation and relative strength system development. I was just testing one idea, and I went through this process. And I'm not going to describe the process here, but I went through a very specific process of testing one variable at a time on a short period of time in the market just to gather evidence if I have something worth pursuing. And so I test a few different variables of this idea. It was a light bulb type of moment where I have an idea about relative strength and I want to discover if there's anything to it. So I look it up, I'm trying it, I'm doing this back test, and I see, okay, there's some positive drift to it, but it is definitely a mess. So then I start adding other information, and my next best idea is terrible. So I reverse that and try something else, and that gets better. So you can compare this one to the first one. So we're getting incremental improvement to this system. And then I keep testing one variable at a time. And I'm going through, and I'm just going to show you, every time I track what is the change that I made and what is the result. And then I go through, and then I keep taking notes, and I keep making changes. You can see here I have one where the win rate's really good. You can see a lot of nice smooth performance, but it still has some trouble. So then I work on filtering that out. You can see here it filters out those big volatile times. So that's somewhat of an improvement. But now I'm realizing I'm starting to get where intuitively and from experience I know that can lead to curve fitting a short amount of data. So at this point I believe, you can see I make a big note here, breakpoint, starting fresh. I've proven to myself that this idea has some qualities to it that are worth exploring further. So I go through, and now I'm going to expand my back test, which is going to take the computer longer to give me results, but they're going to be more statistically relevant. So I pull those up and I start plotting those, and all of these previous graphs here represent about this much of this future data. So first I was testing a lot of ideas on the small amount of data, and now I'm skipping all the way back and gathering a lot more information. So you can see a lot of these. I start with ATR-based sizing, use the data 2 trend. I have the data 1 trend with ATR sizing, and out of that I say, well, it looks like maybe the data 2 is superior. So I'm going to keep that and move on from there. So then I have these other things using the variance filter as well, and you can see that creates a lot more data points in there for some reason. I actually don't know why we're getting those arrows on this one but not the other one. I keep testing one variable at a time, and taking a break when I feel kind of lost, I summarize. I go back and analyze and summarize. What is it that I've learned so far? And then I keep going and I keep going. And ultimately, the testing at this point, this is still a not fully developed idea, but I took this and then I went out 15 years and randomly selected a completely different list of stocks. And just by expanding to a higher list, to more time and more stocks, my original concept gets validated by this process of out of sample, testing the idea on something other than what I developed it on. And that's where I can see that this idea really is starting to take shape and starting to look like something that I can explore even further. So this process took a few hours over a couple of different days where take a break from it, think about it, work on some other things. But this is the process of system development. The system doesn't matter. It's an unformed idea. This is the script, like I said. It's basically looking at relative strength to the market. It's calculating that a couple of different ways in different tests. But the relative strength idea with a long-term trend filter is looking pretty good. So I want to share with you that that's kind of what it looks like to go from an idea. First I had an idea and I tested it, it looked okay. And then I wanted to go through this process that I've developed over a few years and that I begin to do so I can document the work so that at the end of it I don't just have a lot more data than I started with but still no insight. So that's the process. It's a journaling process very similar to trading. You can journal your studies, you journal your backtesting, you can journal your different ideas and what the results were of those ideas. And then you do that a few times, you do it over the course of a few weeks, and you begin to discover things that can improve your trading. So this is what systems is. The implementation of a system like this may really be a filter and an indicator to guide discretionary trading. It may be a filter to guide options trades that are formed around these ideas, at which point you would begin an entirely different optimization and backtesting process to see if you can further refine and reduce drawdown from the benefit of options. So that is just one example of how this works. And what I want to share with you next is I've talked about this in the past and I've had some conversations. that I want to share this information and help other traders begin to go through this process of when you have an idea or when you hear about a trade or an indicator or a system, that you can validate it for yourself in a specific way where you can gather relevant statistics and decide for yourself with good data whether or not this is something that should impact your trading. And you go through that process, and after a short period of time, really it shouldn't take any more than weeks of beginning this process of testing and validating, you can begin to make better trading decisions that are based on data and statistics rather than something that was just an idea or something you heard about from somebody else. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a series called Systems Testing. It's a systems testing workshop series. And the goal of this is we're going to be looking for hard evidence about what works and what does not work. And then I'm going to show you either how to do it if you have the tools for yourself, or just I'll be doing it for you if you don't have the tools. You don't have to know how to program or write any code to complete this. You'll be able to attend and participate and get the information by osmosis and simple observation. But we'll be looking at relevant optimization of different ideas and different systems to find something that is statistically reliable and dependable. I'll be showing you a process to help you guess less about your trading and start predicting intelligently. And intelligently doesn't have anything to do with your IQ level. It has to do with the data that you're using, the information you're using to do your predicting. And so having the right data and enough of it can help you make intelligent predictions about probabilities in your trading. During the sessions, you can ask me to test anything that you want, any symbol, any indicator, any time frame, and I reserve the right to deny the request or let you know that it's not a well-formed enough idea, or that it would be too complicated for the format. But we'll be able to, I'll give you feedback on any idea that you can share to the best of my ability, and we can test different components of it and at least get you moving in the right direction to validate different ideas that you might have. So we'll be doing that live during these sessions. I'll show you a system to validate your ideas, and we'll be looking at action. Hopefully you'll be taking away from this, from the very first session, actionable ideas that you can implement into your trading. So gathering information about indicators maybe that you have been using that you could stop using, indicators you could start using, indicators you've been looking at one way you may find to be valuable for a completely different purpose. So hopefully by the end of the very first session you will be able to get some information, take away, and use in your trading. And then I will be sharing with you, and so that you can discover the 4-step process to find and employ edges profitably. So that is the process of going from the original light bulb moment all the way to implementation. And there's 4 major steps that we'll go through, and then there's a dozen or so sub-steps. But I really want to make sure you have in your mind at all times these 4 steps to make sure you go through before you take risk, so that you are sure you have an employable edge in your trading. So these sessions are going to be twice a month to get started, and that will be the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. And we'll be doing those at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Part of that timing reason is for international participants. That's a good middle of the day session, where overseas that's not too late in the evening, and then in the US it's not too early if you're on the West Coast. So that is kind of the selection of that timing there, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of each month. As we get started, this is going to be a risk-free, no-cost thing. So during the month of April, you can participate in this with no cost. You will go through the subscription process, but you will not be charged until the next month. So you can see if this is going to work for you, and if it doesn't, if it's not really going to fit for you, if you're not really able to absorb the information for any reason, you can just send us an email, info@smbcap.com, or contact or support at smbcap.com, or directly to me. You just send an email and just notify us, say, I'm not going to be a part of systems testing anymore. You can cancel my subscription before I get charged. And no questions asked, we will just take care of that for you. So for the first month in April, we're going to have 2 sessions, totally free. There's a lot of other stuff planned. If you go to smbtraining.com, this is kind of a long address here. So 2 ways: you can either type this in and get to this, or you can just send me an email and I'll send you a link to it. But on that page is kind of a letter, a little introduction to the concepts that we'll be covering and the format that we'll be in, and the additional information outside of the 2 live sessions, as far as between the sessions, video updates, articles, and studies that will be posted as well. So after that, it's not on here, but it's free for the first month, but after that it'll be $99 a month to participate in this. As I said, you do not need any programming experience. You do not need to expect to need to learn programming. You can participate in this from an observation standpoint, letting us do the hard work, letting other members and subscribers to the system testing workshops, let them do the work that they like to do, that we like to do, and you can still gather a lot of very valuable information from these testing processes that we'll be going through. So we have a lot of other cool things planned as well, but this is the general idea of what we're going to be working on in these workshops. So if you find this interesting, I hope you join us this month, making sure you take advantage of this intro, this free period, to see if it's going to be something you'd be interested in. So if you have any questions, send me an email, afaldi@smbcap.com. I look forward to answering your questions. Thanks.